So let's jump in. Today, I want to talk about the 3 website updates you need to make in 2021. So there's, a lot of things that have happened over the last year, as we've kind of touched on, and I'm sure many of your businesses have changed. Even for me, where my work is digital, right? I can exist on my laptop and make all of the changes, the updates, everything I need to do, I can do for my laptop, which is really great and super helpful. But even my business has changed a lot because of 2020. From the services that I offer to the way that I set up my sales funnel, everything is different, and that's okay and that's great, but it does require a look at our websites. And so I'm sure you are going through the same process of thinking, okay, how can I get this to work best for me? And so I really like this quote from Leland Dieno. I hope I'm saying that right. Your website is the center of your digital ecosystem. Like a brick and mortar location, the experience matters once a customer enters just as much as the perception they have of you before they walk through the door. So when looking at 2021, knowing that so many people are spending more and more time online, we're not able to go to stores, we're not able to shop in the same way we have been. Even if you aren't, selling products, all of these things, people are going to have a perception of you and your business from your website. And so it's important to make sure that you are up to date, that you are competitive in your design and in the way that it functions, and that you're being thoughtful and intentional. It's oftentimes, we think, oh, social media, they'll find my website through that. That's kind of their first impression of me. In a lot of ways, that's true. But what people really want to see and what they'll really kind of judge you on is your website. There's been so many times where I've talked with clients who have said, gosh, I saw your website and I was just really impressed with it, or that was exactly what I want my site to look like, or I saw it was super easy to navigate and it was great, right? And sometimes I'm like, wow, that's awesome. And there's still things I can do to improve my site. I'm even looking at a lot of updates this year for the next couple months to make. So I'm really excited about that. So definitely kind of approaching your site from that perspective is important. So the first thing you want to do is update your site and make sure it is mobile friendly. So depending upon what platform you use, this looks very different. So if you are on WordPress, it could take a lot more effort, a lot more time. And honestly, you'll probably want to invest in a professional who knows how to update it, because your template could be different from anyone else, which is great in a lot of ways for customization. But for example, I have some clients where I've built websites and they have responsive design. And so they automatically will adjust for smaller screens, no matter the size, smaller, bigger, whatever. It'll adjust, it'll look great. There's no issue. But I have other clients where I essentially have to create 2, even 3 websites, different versions, right, of the same content, of the same information in their website because of the way the template is set up. So that's something to research and look into. That's something you can find in the documents of your template. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, that's okay. Feel free to reach out to me and I can help you figure it out. But definitely knowing how your site looks on a mobile device is super important. If you have something like Squarespace or Shopify, those sites are typically already designed to adjust. So for example, if you were to go to my website, westfalldigitalstrategies.com, on your phone, it's automatically going to take all of my content and shrink it and rearrange it so that it works on that screen. So it's not itty bitty, but it's also not all kind of random spaced out. So that's really important, especially because as we are just going through our lives, mobile devices are just more and more prevalent. So whether it's someone, reading their emails in their bed in their morning, I don't know about you, but there's so many times I'll reach over, grab my phone. I see that there's an email from a client and the first thing I want to do is open it. Hard habit I've had to adjust to, but that's the norm, right? Like 85% of email users are accessing their accounts on their mobile devices. So if you're sending something that you want them to look at something on your website, if you are selling a product or a service, you want to make sure that when they open it, it's going to look the way you want it to look. Another stat that's interesting is 3.81 billion with a B, social media users are on some kind of platform, right? And 98% of them are accessing them on mobile devices. which makes sense, especially on Instagram. If you're using Instagram to promote any content, you want to be thinking about where you're sending them and what it looks like on a mobile device, because most people are going to be on Instagram, on TikTok, on, even LinkedIn, on their phones, right? It's kind of like, I don't know about you, but there's sometimes I'll take a quick lunch break and I'll go from looking at my computer screen to looking at my phone screen. And so knowing that that's how people engage with content and with these channels, we want to make sure that the content that we're putting in front of them looks its best. So that's one reason, is that mobile use is just going to continue to increase. People are just going to continue to navigate on these different devices, and even on things like iPads or tablets or anything else that they're going to throw at us. You're going to want to be able to have your site navigate that well. The other thing is that having a mobile-friendly design is actually going to boost your Google ranking. So Google is now ranking based on mobile sites first. So they know that people are using phones more and more, right? I mean, even for me, it's like if I'm watching a movie and I want to know who the really attractive actor is that I can't place his name, I'm going to look it up on my phone, right? I'm going to be like, who is the actor from blah, blah, blah. And so Google is going to want to give me those search results, and they're going to look at not just what I'm searching for, but what device I'm using, so that they can give me the best information that's going to work the best for me. So they take that into account. They're looking at the user experience just as much as the content you're providing. So if you want to have your content found, if you think, oh, people are going to be searching for this kind of information on their phones, or you just want Google to rank your content higher on any search result, having a site that's going to have a strong mobile presence and mobile design is going to be a major benefit. And then we kind of touched on this as well, designing for your mobile version. For some of you, it might mean that the actual content that you create is going to look different on each platform. Maybe there's something on your site that it has to be done on a web browser on a computer because of sensitivity issues or because of an application. Whatever it is, you're going to want to keep that in mind and design accordingly. Or maybe there's, an image or a video that you want to play, and it's not going to play as well on a mobile device if you embed it directly into the web page, as opposed to if you connected it to YouTube or something like that, right? So there's all these different things that come into play. And so you're gonna wanna think through that. And I know that that sounds really complicated and can be very overwhelming, and you don't have to get it exactly right the first time. But if you're looking for ways to really boost your traffic to your website, making sure that your mobile design is working for you is gonna be one of the best ways to do that. All right, next, let's talk about the actual design for your user. So I haven't quite touched on this in the past, but something you'll probably hear a lot with web designers, or kind of as you're exploring, is UX, which is user experience. So it's just shorthand for user experience. It's usually interchangeable with UI, which stands for user interface. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's what is this person experiencing on your website? How are they engaging with that content? What do they see? And what's natural? What's intuitive? All those little pieces and everything that you're choosing to put on there. Right? So if you have like a beauty product, like we see on this photo, how are people going to want to look at that? Are there photos that you're going to include? Can they zoom in? Can they zoom out? How are they going to find that content, and how are they going to navigate it? Navigating a website on a desktop is very different from navigating it on a much tinier screen, just with the amount of information that you can share at one time, the size of things, all of that kind of stuff. So think through both on your mobile, but also on your desktop. How are people engaging with your content, and is it an intuitive design? One thing I like to do is have someone kind of go through each of them. So audit your current site. And this would be someone, when you're thinking about who to ask, like, for example, I love my mother. I would not ask my mother to audit my website, not because she's not capable, but because she loves me and she would not ever want to hurt my feelings or say anything negative, right? And don't worry, she's not on this call, although I'm sure she will watch this later. So as much as I would love her feedback, and I often ask for it, if I want a really direct, almost harsh, audit of my site, I'm going to talk to one of my colleagues. I'm going to talk to a fellow developer. I'm going to talk to someone, and I'm going to give them that permission, right? I'm going to say, hey, look, this is a website. This is not who I am as a person. This is, I want this to be the best it can be. Give me your full, blunt, honest opinion of all these things. And hopefully they will still do it with kindness, but they will say, okay, this doesn't make sense, or my eyeball doesn't look at that, or what does this do? Or this doesn't even link to anything, right? You want them to crawl through your entire website and use it as intuitively as if they were your client. And if you can actually get someone who would be your client, that's even better. So definitely taking the time to look through the site, have someone else check it out. If you can have multiple people do it, the more the merrier, all of that fun stuff. And if you'd like me to do it, I'm currently doing free website audits. They're super fun. I love them. I've already got like 4 people on my calendar to do them this week and weekend. So I'll put that link in there, but have someone who can look through it and give you a brutal, honest account of it. The second thing then is to just create a plan to implement the updates from that audit or hire a web designer. So for example, one of the websites I audited the other day, it was great. It was awesome. This person is a designer themselves, but their website was not communicating that because they're not a web developer. And I know what platform they were using, and it's a complicated one. And so there's a lot of simple changes this person could make, but it's honestly probably going to be worth their time and energy to hire someone to do it as opposed to doing it themselves. Whereas I have some other clients who are really, they update their sites regularly. They're fluent in all of it. They could do it easily. They just need a plan to say, okay, this is what I need to get done, and this is when I'm going to do it. So that's kind of the most practical way to approach it. If it feels really overwhelming, get someone to look at your website, look at yourself with a critical eye, dig through all of it, and then write out all the things that you need to change, and then give yourself an assignment and a due date to do them. And ideally I would say give yourself 2 hours longer than you think it'll take. That's probably more than you'll need, but I can't tell you how many times I've gone in to update a website, especially if you use WordPress, and I've just been like, oh, it's a simple change. And then 2 hours later, I'm like, well, that was not 15 minutes like I thought it would be. So definitely planning out your time and knowing what you want to update. All right, the third thing is to update your content. And this is really good to do in tandem with your user experience. So, kind of giving yourself that audit, looking at the content, but really focusing on the design and how it all works, and then going through it again and updating your content. So new year, new content refresh is kind of how I like to approach it. And this could be anything from, do you need to update your copy? Are there any typos or grammatical errors? Even for me, I had an editor go through my copy, and he did it on a Word doc, and it was perfect. It was awesome. And then when I copied it into my website, I somehow created some typos and grammatical errors. And when I went through it, I was able to fix it. So take the time, look through it. If, editing is not your strong suit, have someone else do it. But look through every single piece and make sure there's no errors of any kind. Then make sure you update your offering. So if there's something new that you're offering, for example, I'm sure all of us now are doing some new form of digital something or other, or even the way that you are having meetings, right? You're doing them on Zoom. Are your systems in check? Do you need to update those different things? And then the last thing you want to do is review your marketing and sales funnel. So this is something I've been doing just this week and last week, and it's been super fun, mostly because it's what I love to do, right? But make sure that your website has the right place in your sales funnel. So are people getting to it too soon or too late? Does it work? Are there too many clicks? Like, think through the way that people are finding you and what they're doing when they're on your site. And then make sure that it makes sense and see if there's anything you need to update. So for example, if I have one funnel and one way that people a lot of times will find me and then hire me to do work. And so I went through and I went, okay, does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Is this correct? And I even found, oh, there's a broken link here, or this automation is not working the way I want it to. Give yourself that full kind of opportunity to go through and make sure it's really working the way you want. And like with the UX and everything, once you figure out what you need to update, give yourself some deadlines, give yourself a calendar, and then you can get it done. All right, I know that was quick, but I did want to leave about 10 minutes at the end here for us to ask some questions and just kind of make sure that we covered everything. So what are your burning questions? Let me pull it up. Yes. Oh, happy birthday to your daughter's good friend, Susan. I also love Bridgerton. Great points. All right, let's see some questions. Any questions from everyone here? If not, no worries. I can always circle back around to something, or if something pops up later, we can always talk about it over email or something similar. Great question. For blogging on a website, how should it appear? Great question. So I am of the mind of kind of less is more, but it really depends upon your audience. So if you go to like my blog, for example, I don't really include many photos in the copy unless there's something very specific that I want to show on, you know, a specific page of something, like I'm talking about a particular example or something like that. So if your audience would benefit from having images or things like that, then I would say definitely include them. Otherwise, I kind of like to keep it a very simple page that people can really read through it, right? I don't want a lot of extra ads or a lot of extra things to just distract people from it. I almost think of it like, okay, they're going to read this content and then I'm going to have a call to action at the bottom, and that's going to give them something to do. So that's kind of one way I look at the actual blog itself. For blogging websites in general, again, it kind of depends upon your audience, but making sure that it's accessible and that there's not too many other things to distract them from it. Great question. All right, another good one. Should you have a separate page for blogging, or could it pop up on the home page? So I would say if you are a blogger, so if that's like what you're doing, or a lot of your revenue comes from that, having that as your homepage is awesome. What I like to do for myself and for my clients is I do kind of like a summary block, typically about the bottom or 3/4 of the way to the bottom of the page. And it has anywhere from the top 3 to 4 most recent blog posts. And then people can click into that and read them and kind of navigate through there. So having them on the homepage is definitely really helpful, and people kind of expect them to be there. But if your content is really the weight of everything that you are trying to share on your site, then having it as your full homepage can be really helpful. So it's kind of a mix of everything. Great questions. All right, let's see. Anything else? Perfect. All right. Awesome. Okay. Guys, I'm hoping it means that I explained everything super well. All right, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in. We'll go back. Another good question. How do you know the size of how your site appears if it looks large on your PC? Oh, that's a good question. So one thing I like to do is I'll often ask someone else who has a different computer to open the site on their page and either send me a screenshot or like a screen share, like video of the site and navigate it. I have a luxury of having my sister live with me and work in the same apartment as me. And so I'll often be like, hey, is this wonky for me or is it wonky for you too? And she'll open it and typically she'll be like, yeah, that's just weird in general. So I know how to fix it. So if you have someone that you can reach out to, especially if they use like a different version of a computer, so like an Apple versus a PC, vice versa, that can be super helpful. And then sometimes what I'll do too is you could open like a new browser. So I use Google Chrome, but if I want to see how something looks in a different browser, I might open like Firefox or like Bing or something similar to that. Or I guess, I don't know if Bing's even around anymore. I'll typically go with Firefox or Safari. And I kind of just pick out and see what works best. But normally that's kind of my go-to. Awesome. Good. Great questions. All right. Last call for some questions. All right, so kind of just some wrap up here for you guys. So next week's session, I'm going to talk about the difference between Shopify and Squarespace and how to really figure out which one's the right platform for your e-commerce site. So if you're not doing e-commerce, no worries. You can meet me back here the following week, which is where I'll talk more about user experience. But this one will be really helpful if you're just trying to figure out, what site is right for you. I do have a website quiz. I'll also include that link. So if you're looking to build a new website, or if you want to just kind of start something fresh and refresh your site, but you don't know if you want to stay with your current host provider, it can kind of give you some insight into what would work best for you. Like I mentioned, I'm doing free website audits right now. And so I'll include that link. You can just request one. And I typically turn them around in about 48 hours. And I try to keep them anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes long. They're just short videos of me going through your site, giving you my thoughts, and helping you to do all of that. They're pretty short and sweet, to the point, and hopefully super helpful. And then the last thing is, I just want to mention again, as an attendee, as long as you attend any of these sessions, you can request and have a 30-minute consultation call with me for free, where we can talk about anything to do with your business, ideally to do with digital marketing, because that is more of my pace. But if you want to talk about something else, we absolutely can. And those links are also in the follow-up email. So just, basically, if you have questions, it's in the email, or feel free to shoot me a message yourself. I'm happy to answer anything you have. Ooh, okay, great question. So one last question is, do you know of any free online banking platform? That is a great question. So off the top of my head, I don't, but I'd encourage you, if you want to shoot me an email at hannah@westfalldigitalstrategies.com, I would be happy to talk to you about that, see if there's something that we can find. I know quite a few people who do a variety of financial things who, if I don't know the answer, I can definitely point you to someone who would. So that's a very good and interesting question. Awesome. Okay, well, technically we have 4 minutes left, but feel free to jump off and get a start to your evening. I hope you guys found this helpful, and that you guys will meet me back here next week. If you think of anyone else that would enjoy these sessions, please feel free to share the webinar link with them, and yeah, it'll just be super fun. All right, have a wonderful day, you guys. Bye.